Israel again bombs Yemen, hitting the main airport and port city. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warns there's more to come. Another Houthi missile is fired at Tel Aviv in response. How dangerous are these escalating hostilities? This is Inside Story. Hello there, I'm James Bays. Yemen again attacked by Israeli warplanes, targets including the capital Sana'a and the port city of Hodeidah, a vital port for one of the world's poorest countries. Several people were killed while a World Health Organization team, including the Director General, were in the country's main airport when it was bombed. Another missile was fired afterwards at Tel Aviv by Houthi forces. Israel says there'll be more attacks, while the Houthis also show no sign of stopping. They've attacked Israel and Western shipping in the Red Sea since the war on Gaza began 15 months ago. So what's next? What's Israel's aim with these attacks? And what do they mean for Yemen and the wider region? We'll discuss all of this with our guests shortly. But first, this report from Axel Zamovich.
An escalation of violence in Yemen as Israeli warplanes strike several targets across the country. The capital's airport was one. It was hit as World Health Organization delegation, led by its Director General, was preparing to fly out on a UN plane. A crew member was injured.
A high-level delegation by the UN, headed by the World Health Organization Director General, Dr. Tedros, was at the airport when the strikes occurred. The delegation had just concluded discussions on the humanitarian situation in Yemen and on the release of UN and other detained personnel. Today's airstrikes follow around a year of escalatory actions by the Houthis in the Red Sea and the region that threaten civilians, regional stability, and freedom of maritime navigation.
The assault also hit the port city of Hodeidah, killing several people and injuring dozens of others. It serves as a vital lifeline for food and aid to millions of Yemenis. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Israel will continue its attacks.
The Air Force attacked targets of the Houthi terrorist organization in Yemen, both on the coastline and in Sana'a. We are determined to root out this terrorist arm of Iran's axis of evil. We will persist in this until we complete the job.
The Houthis then fired a missile into Tel Aviv, where some Israelis were injured as they rushed to get into shelters. This growing confrontation between Israel and the Iran-backed Houthis has sparked fears of a broader regional war. For more than a year, the Houthis have attacked commercial ships linked to Israel in what they say is a show of solidarity with Palestinians in Gaza. But their actions in the Red Sea have severely disrupted global shipping routes and increased the cost of insurance. That's prompted attacks by US and British forces.
The aggression against us will only increase the determination of the great Yemeni people to support the Palestinian people in fulfillment of our religious, moral and humanitarian duty. The operations of the Yemeni armed forces will never stop until the aggression on Gaza stops and the siege is lifted.
For a country devastated for years by civil war and a dire humanitarian crisis, the attacks by Israel are increasing hardship for its people.
I think the country, Yemen, does not have the capacity or the capability to deal with another crisis and another sort of strong actor that's intervening in their domestic affairs. Any miscalculation will probably devastate Yemen, and the country cannot handle that.
With Israel pledging to press on and the Houthis vowing to stand firm, Yemen could be drawn deeper into an expanding regional conflict. Axel Zamovich, Al Jazeera for Inside Story.
Before we talk to our panel of guests today, let's first go to Yemen's capital, Sana'a, where I want to bring in a pro-Houthi journalist and political commentator, Hussain Al Bukhaiti. Thank you for joining us, sir. Can I start by asking you, what has been the reaction there to this latest Israeli series of airstrikes?
As I said, Abdul Malik, leader of Ansarullah, have said yesterday, and he has insisted that the military operation will continue. And the first reaction was in the early hour of today. Yemeni army has launched 3 attacks. One ballistic missiles have targeted the Ben Gurion airport in Tel Aviv, and another drone targeted a site in Tel Aviv. And as well, they have launched an attack with a number of drones targeting a ship called Santa Ursula in the Arabian Sea, east of Socotra Island. So this means that Yemeni message is clear that they will continue their attack despite the Israeli launching attack yesterday against Sana'a airport and as well against the port of Hudaida. And I just want to mention as well that the Sana'a airport has returned as normal, and today the flight are going to the airport without any disturbance.
Now, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says they're going to continue their attacks until he says the job is done. Do you think there's any worry there among the Houthi leadership because of what we've seen has happened to leaders of Hamas and Hezbollah? Are they concerned there?
No, I mean, there is no worries about that. When they have entered this war against Israel because of their genocide in Gaza, they said clearly that the only way to stop their attack and to lift the blockade against Israel in the Red Sea and to stop attacking the Zionist state of Israel is when the Israeli regime will stop its attack and genocide and lift the blockade in Gaza and to withdraw from Gaza. If those demands are not met, this means that Yemeni army will continue their attack, and they might as well expand their attack into Israel, and as well maybe to target as well the port in occupied Palestine, because as we see that Israeli actually haven't got a clue about Yemeni army military installation as well. We've seen that they only keep targeting the port and airport and power station in Sana'a and Hudaida, and this is exactly what the Saudi has done during 9 years of war. They have conducted more than 270,000 attack and strikes against Yemen, and those areas has been targeted hundreds of times. That's why Yemeni actually are used to this type of attack, and they will continue their attack against Israel. And I believe that Yemeni as well have one more escalation to come, and I believe that they could as well not only form a blockade against ships that are linked to Israel or shipping companies, but they could as well form a blockade against country that actually have a relation or support in Israel, like Germany. So Yemeni is the one who have the upper hand, and they are the one who control the Red Sea. And we've seen that as well the United States, and with more than 600 airstrike against Yemen with the UK, this actually did not stop Yemeni attack, and we've seen that Yemeni now are conducting attacks against Israel on a daily basis.
So just to be absolutely clear, you're talking about possible expansion from the Houthi side, depending on what happens. To be absolutely clear, if there was a ceasefire tomorrow in Gaza, would all of this stop? Would the Houthis stop all of their attacks there and then?
It will stop, as they said here, that the battle for the Red Sea is the battle of Gaza. If there is a ceasefire is signed in Gaza, and Hamas will approve that ceasefire, this means that Yemeni army here will stop their attack entirely, either in the Red Sea or against the Zionist state of Israel.
Your authorities there are taking an action on behalf of the people of Gaza, but the consequences are really bad, are they not, for the people there in a country that's one of the poorest in the region and has such a desperate humanitarian situation?
They are used to do this type of attack, and Yemeni, we've seen that on a weekly basis, millions of people take up to the street here in Sana'a and in other major city, and they all demand the Yemeni army to continue their attack, and as well demanding the Yemeni army and as well the leader of Ansarullah to expand their attack to target Israel with more missiles and more drones.
Hussain Al Bukhaiti, thank you very much for joining us from Sana'a. Well, let's now bring in our panel of guests today. And from Riyadh, we have Mustapha Noman, former Yemeni Deputy Foreign Minister. From Tel Aviv, Yossi Beilin, a former Israeli cabinet minister. And from Brussels, Elijah Magnier is a military and political analyst. Thank you all for joining us today on Inside Story. If I could start with you, Elijah, we've seen these clashes going on. We've seen attacks coming from Israel. We've seen Houthi attacks on Israel for some considerable time now. Is this expanding into a full-scale conflict?
I don't think it's going to go to a full-scale war as in Lebanon and in Gaza because of the distance. Israel is 1,700 to 2,000 kilometers away from Yemen, and it does need, indeed, the support of the US to participate directly in any military operation that Benjamin Netanyahu would like to carry out against Yemen. This is in his mind, this is what he said, and he also anticipated that it is not going to be a unilateral effort, but it's going to be a joint operation with the United States, which is true. Nevertheless, we've seen examples in the past, in the last month or since the 7th of October, we did not see a larger escalation even with the war on Gaza and with the war on Lebanon. Therefore, we have seen it always contained within specific theater, which is something that is also suitable for Benjamin Netanyahu. So we have to see if the United States are going to participate in a large attack against Yemen. Israel needs intelligence information about location and to assassinate leaders, as he also anticipated and told us. And we have to see if this is feasible, particularly in the light of Yemeni learning from what happened in Lebanon and in Gaza and drawing the conclusion and taking countermeasures to a possibility of a destruction in Yemen similar to the one in Lebanon.
I'd like to start with you, Yossi, just to get some idea of what ordinary people think there right now about the situation. How is this being seen? Is there fear and panic? And do the public support Israel's actions?
By and large, I believe that the public is supportive because there are no issues between the Houthis and Israel. Israelis have not heard about the Houthis until, I think, quite recently. And they watch TV, they watch the spokesperson there who reminds them, the speakers or the spokespersons in North Korea, with the kind of way they speak and threaten. And they don't know exactly what do they want from us. I mean, right, it is clear that they want us to end the war. Many people in Israel want to end the war, but they don't want and are not going to support ending the war only because of the Houthis. So their idea that by launching missiles, ballistic missiles against Israel every night and wake up, make a kind of a wake-up call for all of us, millions of people in the middle, in the center of Israel, Israel will decide to end the war. I don't think that this will be the case. And I do think that a coalition of countries which understand how crazy this situation is will help in creating a kind of a blockade on this poor country. Really, it is a shame that we have to do these things, that Israel has to bombard the airport and all these things to this poor place, but we don't see any other way out of this kind of situation, and it cannot go on forever.
Mustapha, let me bring you in on that point. Your country is one of the poorest on earth. The UN currently estimates, I think, over the next year, 19 million people will need humanitarian assistance. And this clearly was highlighted by the fact that the head of the World Health Organization, Dr. Tedros, happened to be at Sana'a airport when it was bombed. The UN Secretary General says, as a result of the humanitarian dimension, he found the attacks especially alarming. Do you think anyone, though, in the world is listening to comments like that from the UN Secretary General?
Unfortunately, nobody's listening to it. But let me say that
what the Israeli army is doing by bombarding civilian sites is not, under no circumstances can be equated to what the Houthis are doing in Israel. I'm not saying here that we are supporting what the Houthis are doing, but I'm saying even the reaction of the Israeli army is not proportionate to what the Houthis have been doing. The Houthis have been saying this for 12 or 13 months now, that they are in what they call the axis of support to Gaza. They have not seen they don't want to see what happened to the Gazans by the Israeli war machine, and then in Lebanon, and then in Syria recently. And that will continue even if the Houthis do stop the attacks towards Israel. There is a consensus in the international community that the power that the Houthis have now has to be decimated. And this is what the Israelis are doing wrongly. They are not attacking military sites. They are attacking civilian targets that do not harm the Houthis directly. The Houthis do not care about what happens to these civilian targets that have been attacked by the Israelis. I don't understand the logic behind choosing or picking these sites, the port and the airport. I cannot get any positive reaction about why these targets.
Let me bring in Yossi then on that particular point. I mean, I was reading the statement from the Israeli military. It described two of the places they'd attacked as military infrastructure used by the Houthi terrorist regime, this is the quote, for its military activities. Those were two power stations. Those are civilian sites, are they not?
I'm speaking, I was asked about the airport. The point is that the two airports, the seaport and the airport, are the doors through which Iran is sending ammunition to the Houthis. This is the point, and this is why they were targeted. Israel is not trying to target civilian aims and targets, and as you know, the Houthis are only targeting civilians. They are targeting me every night, so I can testify. I spent some long minutes, if not more than that, in the middle of the night in shelters. So they do attack civilians. So they are the last to complain about something like that. But I can say to you, it is something that it is very difficult for me to defend and say this is our aim. We should kill Houthis and whatever. Who needs it? It is really crazy. They should understand they will not stop the war in Gaza. The war in Gaza will be stopped, but not by them. And they should understand that they are damaging their own country, their own people, as it happened with Hamas. And they should stop it. If they don't stop it, then Israel will not have any other choice but trying to help create a coalition which will stop it.
OK, Elijah, let me bring you in on what they've been targeting, because the targeting that they've gone for in this most recent attack looks pretty similar to the targets they went for the last attack. It sounds like they don't have that many options and perhaps don't have very good intelligence.
Well, no, it looks like the Israelis don't have many options. They don't have enough information and they don't have a bank of objectives because of the distance and because the Israelis never thought they're going to go and fight the Ansarullah Houthis in Yemen. Secondly, yes, indeed, Israel has many choices. First, to stop killing the civilians in Gaza. Second, stop destroying Gaza. Third, to allow the people to live and to break the siege on Gaza. The Houthis did not start by bombing Israel. They started with the maritime blockage. And they said, lift the blockage on Gaza, we will lift the blockage on you. But the Israelis went on. They didn't care because Benjamin Netanyahu has different projects. And because Benjamin Netanyahu has a project to eliminate the presence of the Palestinians, at least in the fast part of the north of Gaza, and bring back the settlements and settlers to the north of Gaza, displace forcibly all the Palestinians. That is the heart of the problem. And Ansarullah said it, that they are supporting Gaza from the humanitarian approach. And because the ICC considered Benjamin Netanyahu as a war criminal, rightly because of his acts in Gaza, this is why Yemen took up the fight to support the people in Palestine. So
okay,
yes,
let me bring in Mustafa now. I mean, if Israel decided to pursue an extended military campaign against the Houthis, is there anyone who's going to stop them? Because a few months ago, the US was warning about regional escalation and saying there must not be regional escalation. But since what's happened in Lebanon, they seem to be very, very quiet and potentially on the horizon in just over a couple of weeks' time, you have got a new president of the United States. And we know the US has also been carrying out its own attacks against the Houthis. There's the possibility, is there not, Mustafa, that they could join forces?
First of all, I want to correct you. I mean, the airport in Sana'a is not used to bring in military equipment. We have one daily flight from Sana'a to Amman. That's what the airport is doing. No other flights reach Sana'a except this flight of Yemenia from Sana'a to Amman, Amman to Sana'a. That's one. The second is the port in Hodeidah is observed and monitored by the UN. So nothing comes to the port unless it's monitored and approved and agreed upon by the coalition that's led by Saudi Arabia and monitored by the UN. Now, going back to what the Israelis can do in Sana'a, there is nothing that they know about and can be targeted. They have been the US and the UK have been targeting Sana'a now for 3 or 4 months as a response to the attacks of the Houthis on the Red Sea. But what happened? Nothing. And now to go after these civilian targets, that makes the case of the Houthis more solid on the ground, that they have been attacked by Israel, the enemy, and been attacked by the US and UK. And they love it. They love it as a PR to their own supporters, that now they are in a war for Gaza against Israel and the United States and the UK. So the political case is lost. And the ethical state is already lost, because what are you attacking? Do you want to punish the Houthis, or do you want to punish the Yemeni population? What has been done is a punishment to the population that has no word or has no say in what the Houthis are doing, either against Israel or inside the country. So we cannot by any means equate what the Houthis are doing and what the Israelis, the US and the UK are doing against Yemen. Me as a Yemeni, and I'm an opponent to Houthis, cannot but condemn what is happening in my country. I mean, destroying what we have built by our own money, we cannot condemn that. We cannot condone this. Whatever the Houthis are doing in the country against the population, but being attacked by an outsider, that's something that we can never tolerate and we can never welcome to do, even if we want Houthis to vanish now. That's unacceptable to me.
Yossi, I mean, as I said before, we've got Trump coming into office pretty soon. Already the US and the UK are having their own separate attacks on the Houthis. Operation Poseidon Archer, I believe, is the code name for that. Do you think it's possible that Israel will persuade Trump to join in with their operations?
Yeah, I think that it is possible. I mean, the point with Trump is that he is totally unexpected. But being unexpected as he is, I think that he is open to such a persuasion. And God knows what will happen as a result of it. By the way, I agree that all the issues which we are witnessing in the last 14 months or 15 months is the issue of the inability to separate between the leaderships and populations. It happens on the Arab side, on the Israeli side, and whoever is raising this point is right. But what can you do? I mean, the leaders are hiding behind this population. And the idea is that if the population is hurt, it will have some kind of impact on their leaders to stop the violence. I mean, I don't see. I really don't see something different than that. I mean, I would like to ask you. You are anti-Houthi, but you are a Yemenite, a patriotic Yemenite. You see what is happening. What would you do in such a situation?
Okay, Mustapha, question to you.
Well, I will tell you something. I mean, there are so many ways to punish the Houthis. You have the financial measures that have been taken against the Houthis. You have to put more inspectors and more inspection on at the port of Hodeidah, so you make sure that there will be no new arms coming to them. That's the only way. But to punish the population for what the Houthis are doing or planning to do in the future, it's not the Yemeni population say. I'm one of those who have been tweeting for months that whatever the Houthis are doing against Israel might look like a patriotic act to support the Palestinians. But the reaction is that it's not helping the Gazans even there. What are we doing there? I mean, I want to help Gaza. I want to stop this genocide in Israel, in Gaza. But what the Houthis are doing is not right. It's not helping, at least.
100%.
So there are so many measures. There are measures that can be taken. More inspection, block the Hodeidah port, but don't destroy it. You are destroying our own installation that we have been building for 50 years.
Okay, I'd like to bring in Elijah again now as our military analyst, because in this discussion, I think we've got to remember the geography of the situation, because Israel bombing Gaza or Lebanon is very different from bombing Yemen. The distance between Tel Aviv and Sana'a is over 2,000 kilometres. Does that create problems for Israel if it did want to start an extended campaign?
It creates a huge problem. Not only that, but also the geography. Israel is 22,000 square kilometers. Yemen is more than 527,000 kilometers, of which Ansarullah control 2/3. So having a vast territory has less effect on Ansarullah when the Ansarullah can fire against Israel and with a small geography, and they can hit the heart of it. But yes, again, in the course of all this war, we've seen only 210 missiles fired from Ansarullah and 175 drones only, which is equivalent to what Hezbollah fired in one day, just a few days before the cessation of hostility. And also from the Israeli side, when they send 50 planes or 100, they need half to escort. They need so many other jets to refill in the air. So it is not that easy. This is why Benjamin Netanyahu is asking for the United States to be directly involved, not because the Americans have a lot of information, intelligence information that the Israelis don't have, but because of the distance, and the Americans have more capability to carry out several attacks with more planes, and it's less of a burden logistically than on the Israelis. This is why we see Israel attacking Yemen occasionally, every 2 weeks or 4 weeks or 3 weeks, depending on the intensity of the bombardment or the reply from the Houthis. But from the Houthi side, we see one missile or two missiles, one drone or two drones, while we see from the Israelis a harsher attack. And again, Israel would love to do with Yemen like it has done with Lebanon, but the distance is very short, and they can go and refill and come back and then bomb hundreds of times per day. This is not something that Israel can do with Ansarullah in Yemen.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us today. Our guests were Mustapha Noman, Yossi, Beilin and Elijah Magnier. Remember, you can watch this programme every day on television, on our app or on our website, aljazeera.com. What do you think of today's discussion? Your comments are welcome on Facebook. That's facebook.com/AJ Inside Story. Or you can use X, where you'll find us at AJ Inside Story. I'll be back here very soon. From me, James Bays, and all the team, stay safe and well. Bye-bye for now.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.